Welcome to Norse Talk, information of the gods. I am Red Bearded Viking. This is Red Dranger, and tonight, you guys, we're going to be starting stanzas 10 through 14 of the study hall. And tonight is our first night of bringing guests in for the Havamal. So tonight we have Shank and Giggles joining us to discuss these stanzas with us tonight. This is something we're going to continue to try and do throughout the Havamal, you guys. So we do once again encourage you to jump on our Discord, and there's a link in there for stanza guests. Put your name in there. We'll be getting in contact with people to find out a good time to bring you on the show. And we're going to try and continue that as much as we can and get as many people in here as possible and just involve the community a little bit more with this book while we're doing it with Norris Talk, just because it's a great book to get this many different people in with different points of views to discuss it.
Yes.
So how's it going, Red?
It's going really, really well. It's been an awesome week. I'm excited to get started again. I'm excited that we're on our new times. Before we get too deep into it, I know that most of the people that are watching us live right now know who these awesome people are. But with this portion of it being available on YouTube, I would like to shoot it to each of our two wonderful guests down here so that they can say a little bit about themselves, how long, and again, it's if you want, how long you've been practicing, what led you to the path, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Let me think here. So, I'm Shank. I live in Pennsylvania. I literally got TikTok to follow a celebrity, and all of a sudden I had Norse pagans everywhere, and I like to educate myself, and I started reading, and then I was like, yep, I belong here. And it's ever since. I've just been reading, studying, practicing, and I mean, I ask a million questions all the time to everyone, and everyone helps everyone, and that's what I love about it. So always ask questions.
Very cool.
I'm Giggles. I live in Maine. I got started when I did the Ancestry DNA, and I found out that I am 43% Scottish, 24% Norway, and 4% Irish, and the rest is all European. And then I started looking into it more, and that is how I met these lovely people, and I started asking questions, and it's just gone from there.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Very cool. Well, I'm happy that you both are here, and I'm super excited that we're going to have some new opinions in the discussion part of the book tonight.
Yeah, definitely. And once again, you guys, if you're following us on YouTube, please hit that follow button, hit that like button, share some comments, give us some insight on what you think, some things you might want to see in future episodes, and just help that YouTube page grow, you guys. So with that, we're going to go ahead and dive into these stanzas tonight, you guys. And what we're going to do tonight is we're just going to kind of take turns reading out the stanzas from the study Havamal. And then Giggles, Dranger, and myself are also going to read a verse out of separate Havamals as well. And we'll show everybody those Havamals real quick. So mine is just the Havamal.
Oh, I have the regular one.
Yeah, we're going to be using that.
Yeah.
Shaq was like, oh shit, I got the wrong book. What the hell? Uh-oh.
All right, guys. So I'll start off reading with stanza 10. A better burden can no man bear on the way than his mother wit. 'Tis the refuge of the poor, and richer it seems than wealth in a world untried. And that was Bray.
And then for Thorpe, we have a better burden no man bears on the way than much good sense. There is thought better than riches in a strange place, such as the resources or the recourse of the indigent. That was Thorpe.
A better burden may no man bear for wanderings wide than wisdom. It is better than wealth on unknown ways, and in grief a refuge it gives. That's Bellows.
And then mine says, a traveler cannot bring a better burden on the road than plenty of wisdom. It will prove better than money in an unfamiliar place. Wisdom is the comfort of the poor.
And then I've got, while wandering, there is no better item to carry than wisdom. When you are lost, wisdom is better to have than wealth. In grief and refuge it gives.
Okay, and then the words, the high one volume, a better burden bears no man on the road than his great manly wit. Better than wealth, it is prized in unknown land, such as refuge of the poor.
And then basically what I got from this stanza 10, you guys, is the best thing that you can do is carrying on your journeys is having wisdom. And this isn't just talking about traveling, but this is talking about your journey in life, your everyday, and just everything that surrounds you, and carrying that wisdom with you and gaining it as you go. And how it speaks to the fact that you can have all the wealth in the world, but if you don't have wisdom, wisdom is way greater than wealth will always be. And that's basically what I got from it.
Yeah, for me, it especially with Thorpe and the high ones here, it really kind of spoke to me about the cost of wisdom, where it talks about the burden of a well-lived life, and the burden of having wisdom means going through the experiences to gain it, then carrying the scars, carrying the weight of that, and how that can change you, as opposed to taking the easy or rich life where it's well provided, and you may live a happy life, but you're going to miss life, but you're going to miss that part of you that you didn't get to experience by attaining it yourself.
Okay, and from Bellows, I really got obviously nothing's better to travel with than wide wisdom. And I also have wisdom's best when traveling somewhere new, because they said wealth on unknown ways, and it kind of gives you refuge, as if a saving grace, like when you need it the most. Having wisdom's going to benefit you more than anything else. It helps you think on your feet.
Yeah.
And I got kind of like the same as you. The knowledge of it is like through trial and error. If you just go through life just staying in the background and not experiencing anything, you're not going to know when certain situations come up on how to handle those, whether it be travels or at home.
Yeah. I like your point about the new worlds, and how having your wisdom, your experience can carry you into the unknown. Because if you have to start over, you've done that. You have the experience to be able to still thrive. You're not dependent on unknowing because you put the effort in already.
Right. And I know for me, like, one of the things I've been trying to do when I'm reading the Havamal is keep in mind that a lot of these poems throughout here are like they're being expressed in those day and age when people actually traveled around places for knowledge and everything. And one of the things that I've been trying to do is like I'm trying to coincide it with today's day and age. And try and set these values to everyday things now compared to the everyday things then. And that's why I kind of talked about a little bit the wisdom that you carry with you. It doesn't have to be a journey of actually wandering, but it can be through what you carry through life and every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, off of what you just said, which I didn't think about until now, when you said bringing it into the now and how we're living, I immediately thought, like, people and teachers, like, they're not passing wisdom down like they used to. And a lot of people are not lazy, but like they don't know, so they don't do themselves. Say like something gets broken, or I mean, this is kind of far fetched, but say something gets broken, you call like a carpenter or a plumber. Like you don't fix it yourself. Like you don't have wisdom. Like you know what I mean? They're not going through certain situations themselves because they can have somebody kind of do it for them.
Yeah.
Right. And just piggybacking off that, if you think about it like back then, when everybody did do everything themselves, if something broke, they fixed it themselves, and when it was something that they weren't sure how to fix or they were having trouble with, they knew one of their neighbors that could come over and help them, and a neighbor would come over and help them. Where today it feels like, not everybody, but there are a lot of people out there that don't even try. And the minute something breaks, it's either I replace it or I take it to somebody.
Yeah. It reminds me of, like, going full circle. It really reminds me of that Seth Rogen quote, that hard times make hard men, easy time make easy. Like it's you can put a lot of thought into this stanza, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a good stanza. I think, especially when you really sit and think on it and hear different people's aspects, and then also trying to apply it to today's day and age. There's a lot of good things in this stanza alone when it just has to deal with, you know, making sure that you're accumulating the wisdom and not just taking the easy way out of everything.
And kind of pass things down. Like, I mean, you talked about way back then, if something broke, they had somebody in their community who could help. They also had fathers teaching their sons, like, you're going to need to know this. And now, if we learn something, like, what we can take from it is, like, I'll teach my daughter that. Like, instead of having her, not, there's nothing wrong with, like, needing a man, but instead of having her need to have somebody do it for her, like, she'll be able to do it herself because, but that's
I was actually thinking that.
Yeah.
Because up here, like how you teach and how you teach, how we all teach in our different regions is going to be completely different, but at the same time. So what I'm teaching my kids might be different from like how you're teaching your kids.
Yep.
But we're passing our knowledge down to them. Like my kids know when we have a snowstorm, I still have flashbacks from the ice storm of 98, and then I tell them, hey, this is what happened. And I teach them this is what you would do, kind of prepping them.
Yeah.
Right.
For if it goes.
Yeah, you share your experience and pass on your knowledge to the next people coming up. That's fundamental, and it is crazy how little that is going around nowadays.
Well, and honestly, to even think about it, how little it's even thought of doing. Like, until you're in a conversation with people and you really think about it, you go, "Have I been doing that?"
We all get into a really kind of passive lifestyle now, where if you need to know something, you Google it. If you come across a problem you've not dealt with before, you get the instructions on how to walk through it step by step and try, instead of trying to problem solve it out. So we're even robbing ourselves a little bit of that personal development of making those mistakes and not knowing what tools you might need to have. So making sure that you have tools to cover the complete job, like that kind of thing. It's very IKEA style, everything's sent to you neatly, and you just use a little Allen key. Like life doesn't work that way.
Right. I feel like when I was growing up, when you asked your parents something, they'd be like, "Go look it up." Where nowadays we're like, "Go Google it."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when Gig said about how we all teach differently,
yeah.
I mean how they say, in Bellows it had said like for wanderings wide, like traveling, like the more you travel, like you take your knowledge with you and then teach those in different regions to kind of know some things that know to kind of spread the wisdom to others.
No, I totally agree. So then we hit stanza 11, you guys, and it starts with a better burden can no man bear on the way than his mother wit. and no worse provisions can he carry with him than too deep a draught of ale by Bray.
Okay, then by Thorpe we have a worse provision on the way he cannot carry than too much beer bibbling. So good is not, as it is said, beer for the sons of men.
Better burden may no man bear, for wanderings wide than wisdom. Worse food for the journey he brings, not afield than an over drinking of ale. Bellows.
A traveler cannot bring a better burden on the road than plenty of wisdom, and he can bring no worse a burden than too much alcohol.
And then I have, while wandering, there is no better item to carry than wisdom. There is no worse of an item to carry than drunkenness within the mind and body.
And in the words of the High One, we have a better burden bears no man on the road than his great manly wit, he who carries no worse provisions in the field than the over drinking of ale.
See, and basically, like what I got from that was pretty simply put. Is just wisdom is the best thing that you can carry with you, and too much alcohol is the worst thing that you can carry with you. Is basically how it broke down for me when I kind of broke it down throughout all the different ones that I read. Those were the main points that I got out of it.
Yeah, to me, it really speaks to the difference between wisdom and enhanced courage to say stuff that you may think is wisdom. Um, Often people that are incredibly inebriated get stuck on an idea. They think that that is correct, and they just march down the road with it. It makes for foolish decisions and foolish choices and outcomes if that's what you base it on. And it really speaks to the point that with drinking as an intertwined into the culture as it was with mead making and celebrations and offerings and so on and so forth, that there was a really kind of rigid code between what the difference of that and drinking to the point of foolishness really kind of is.
Yeah, and I put like the opposite of wisdom is ale that is clouding with overthinking, kind of like, when you're drunk, you're not thinking clearly, you'll make mistakes other than like when you're sober and you're thinking like I always tell my daughter, like, use your head before you do something, like let's make good choices, and you don't think that when you're drunk. But I also put it's super ironic they're talking about being sober and how, I mean, it's true, ale is like clouding judgment, but also throughout like the history and a ton of books, like there's a whole story of Odin like getting ale, how much beer Thor can drink, like it's very prominent throughout like the history. So I kind of find it a little ironic that this stanza is like saying don't get drunk.
I think you see that a lot in a lot of the stories about them boasting about how much they can drink and still maintain themselves. But when that line is crossed, there is a lot of ridicule, even from the other members of the Asir. Like it's seen as almost the weakness to get to that beyond point. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting how stanza 10 and 11 in my book, the first two lines were exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like it could have been different out, throughout this. And even in the study, there are two of them that the first two lines are exactly the same. And I actually have to agree with the gods in their stories. They boast about how much they can drink, but it's kind of like that happy buzz. And if they go over that to belligerent drunk, then that's not cool.
Right. And like,
it weakens your senses.
I know one thing me and Drenger discussed when we were doing the last book was we did discuss the aspect of it does talk a lot about drinking in the Norse history and everything, but there's kind of like a stigmata on the fact that people think that all they did was get together and get drunk all the time. And but when you really start diving into the true stories, it talks about drinking, but it talks about they were sipping and passing, and it wasn't they were sitting there and chugging horns and doing this and doing that. I mean, was there some of that during, like, after, coming home from a raid and they were having a huge get together and a party? Yeah, there was instances where that happened, but it wasn't like an everyday thing like it's portrayed on TV and everything like that. There's definitely a misperception of how it was, and a lot of it is based on what people see on the different shows.
Yeah. A thriving society cannot function by idolizing um, activities that would cause you not to be a functioning society. There was a really strict social contract amongst the people about what was too much, what was acceptable, and what was unacceptable. And I think even the series did a little bit about that with one of the characters that got too deep into it, and it cost him pretty much everything. But you are completely right.
I said that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they don't really discuss it in pop culture. In pop culture, it's the big beard guy with a keg and shit's overflowing over the place, and that's the idealism of it, like the fantasy about that being realistic.
And I
It's
mean,
just,
Red said, like, I think you said about men, like, oh, I can drink this much and still function. A lot of guys try to do that, like, now. And they
yeah,
make fools of themselves because they
yeah,
can't do it. So,
it's still very much a part of society, knowing when
yeah.
you've had too much and reading the room, basically. You know what I mean? Where are you? Who's there? It again leads into the warrior culture aspect of it. Going into this room, the same philosophy from the first stanza applies. You don't know who's in there if you're drinking to the point of being stupid. You're now not just missing out on this social contract about it where you're bugging and offending everybody. Everybody also knows and is aware that you're useless to the group at this time now if shit goes sideways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're not
It really sucks when that happens, when somebody's running the live. I mean, I don't know who has ever done that, but
Do you think that the what people see on TV, like Vikings or Game of Thrones, um if that kind of persuades them to thinking that back during the Viking age that's how they actually were, that they were always drunk and
absolutely, and I think you see that with every kind of culture that is idolized in a way. Like you look at like a lot of the medieval reenactors, everybody tends to romanticize a specific point of it. For the berserker, it was the crazy tatted up guy with an axe running into a battlefield with ale in his hand and no fucking body armor. With the medieval people, it was about status and chivalry and colors and coat of arms and that kind of stuff. Even with Japanese culture, another warrior culture that a lot of people tried to emulate and have respect for, there are aspects of that that are looked at as and romanticized in pop culture that just aren't functional. And it is sad because it does turn a lot of people away from Norse paganism, I've seen. And that is a conversation that we've all probably had with a few people by now, is they'll jump in and, oh, you guys are just, it's fake Vikings and you guys just want to drink and do this and do that, when it's so much more complex. Like when we did the ethics code in the last book, us diving into that, none of us knew just how complex and how much further we could have gone with that the society was. So it's all interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I
definitely.
thought of something before we move on. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
So, you know how you said, like, after a war or a battle, they'll go back and drink? Do you think, and I know a lot of people here do it, that has something to do with, like, PTSD from fighting and what they see in the war, and then drinking.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean?
there has to be an
Like, not
outlet.
only is it a celebration, but that could also
It's probably to
contribute
numb the
it.
pain from them getting, speared, or
And not
having.
just that, but
That too.
the people that didn't come back home with them. You know what I mean? There has to, and then that kind of, again, warrior culture, you have to sow some sort of process or ritual to be able to justify the loss of your brethren, right? There needs to be that. It needs to be important. It needs to be made worth it. We still do it now with justifying things we do, but back then the whole community had to be behind you. So a big raid thrown by the Jarl or thrown by the town leader, when all the colors came out, the cool fires and the cool, it became an event. It became a socially accepted event. Yeah, I think that ties directly to mental health because society does create things in order to take care of itself in a primitive way, I guess. But yeah, I think
Well,
so.
and I know that we do a lot of talking. We've done a lot of talking on PTSD and stuff like that. And if you really think about it, like, the PTSD that a lot of us suffer today that were in the services and everything like that, and you look at back then where, a lot of it was close face to face, everything that happened, where
Yeah.
there is still some of that. There is still times that happens nowadays, but, we're using different means against each other than they were back then, where everything was close contact back then. So you got to just imagine that, just like people coming home from that nowadays, they went home with nightmares and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not just the fighting, but look at just the trip over. You grab 24 dudes and stick them on a boat that's not much bigger than a long canoe and sail across the ocean on it. Like that shit fucks with you when you're up for 48 hours because you're not in calm waters, you don't sleep, you start going crazy and you're like, that shit leaves marks.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that takes us into stanza 12, you guys. Bray starts out. Less good than they say for the sons of men is the drinking of oft the ale. For the more they drink, the less they can think and keep a watch o'er their wits.
And so that leads us into Thorpe. A worse provision no man can take from table than too much beer bibbling. We're on 12, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah,
you have the same
so
line
that's
twice.
it's a really close translation in the second one, so I just want to make sure I didn't make a mistake. For the more he drinks, the less control he has of his own mind. Okay, sorry.
Less good there lies than most believe in ale for mortal men. For the more he drinks, the less does man of his mind the mastery hold. And that's Bellows.
And then out of mine, it says, there is not as much good as men claim there is in alcohol for one's well being. A man knows less as he drinks more and loses more and more of his wisdom.
And then I have no worse of a provision can no man take than too much alcohol. For the more intoxicated he becomes, the less control he has over his mind.
From the words of the High One copy, not so good, though good it is deemed for ale for the sons of men, for less than he thinks he fuller drinks, till mind deserts the man.
So what I basically took out of this stanza, stanza 12, is it's attesting to the fact that alcohol is not the blessing people seem to perceive it to be. Um, the more we drink, the less control we tend to have. So it can be said that the more you drink, the less you know, and the fool you start to become.
Yeah. I put pretty plain that there's no good drinking, although most believe that it'll be okay. Just be sober. And the more you drink, the less control you have over your thoughts or actions.
Yeah. Again,
That's
for
pretty
me,
much
this
what I had.
this one ties really similarly to a point that was made by just about everybody here in the last one about how it affects you and how then you are going to affect everybody else by doing so. You know what I mean? By losing your wits or losing your wisdom. I don't think in this particular stanza that they're speaking to a lifetime's worth of wisdom. I think they're believing they're really narrowing that word down to be your wisdom is your ability to keep your shit together at this event. You know what I mean? Like, and the fact that if you're not, you are now taking away from it instead of helping be a part of it, because now people are having to take care of you. Now you may have a higher chance of offending somebody that you don't know, or somebody that's visiting. It puts everybody at risk, because again, everybody was like a town, group, clan, whatever you were judged based on the actions of the group, not necessarily just yourself. If you acted in dishonor in a hall that was not your own, the next time somebody from your hall attended this one, they are going to have attached a little bit of that name that you earned when you were there. And so it pays forward, and it's, again, keep your shit together. That's basically what I get from it.
Well, off of what you were saying, basically, if someone is going to act a fool and get shit-faced drunk, at least the rest of the town knows, okay, we got to watch out for this person. So they'll have the wisdom of knowing what you're going to do.
Well, and what would the effect on that person be the next time there was a solstice or an event where alcohol was going to be served? The entire group is going to look and go, eh. So, I mean, it affects that person's orlog as well. They are now carrying that stigma with them, which is really interesting in a society that did kind of use alcohol as I don't want to say a test of manhood, but kind of almost when it came to the stories that you look about the gods being able to keep it together while drinking and stuff like that. If that is who you're worshiping, you're going to try to emulate that. So you have to expect that level of, I bet you I can drink you under the table kind of thing. And if there was a competitive aspect to that, like was there a drinking game that made that okay so that you guys could toe to toe that? You know what I mean? Because it sounds like there would have to be.
Yeah, and what you said a little bit, like, and I always try and relate this to like my personal life. So you said about somebody going somewhere else and being drunk, acting a fool. My dad would always tell me, like, mind your manners, because like I represent my family, and although there's one in every family, it doesn't matter. Like, I represent that, so and that to me kind of goes.
Yeah, we'll wait and see if we get him back. Not sure what happened.
Hopefully
we might have had a glitch that's happened before, but we'll just keep rolling with it. He'll be back in a second, guys.
Yeah.
So that was weird as fuck. I don't know what happened there. It just I wasn't even touching.
I warned you about Loki tonight. Like,
right?
I warned you.
You should have seen our faces. We're like, well.
I'm gonna have to redraw my words.
Kind of like trying not to laugh.
I was legit. I am 4 feet from the phone right now. There was nothing that should have done that. Like, that was weird. Oh well, it happens.
You know what it is? What it is earlier when we were talking about Loki, and you're like, "Oh, well, I do this to send everything your way."
You got cocky.
It could be. But I did bounce back fairly quickly, so maybe the Lord worked. Yeah. I do like that it's all in different positions than we were before. So have fun with editing, Richard.
Oh yeah, we're just gonna roll it. Like we're gonna let everybody see what happened.
Oh.
So did anybody else have anything about 12 before we move to 13?
I don't
this
believe
one was
so.
Pretty straightforward.
All right. So Bray says in 13, a bird of unmindfulness flutters, or ill feast, willing away men's wit. With the feathers of that fowl, I was fettered once in the garse of gunlords below. Like I felt like that was a tongue twister for a minute there.
Thorpe, Obliviation's Heron. 'Tis called that over Potations hovers and steals the minds of men. With the bird's pinions, I was feathered in Gunnalog's dwelling.
Over beer, the bird of forgetfulness broods and steals the mind of men. With the heron's feathers fettered I lay, and in Gunloss house was held. Bellows.
And in The Wanderers, Havamal, it says, it's as if a memory-stealing heron broods overhead while you drink and steals your mind away. I myself have been trapped in the bird's feathers when I drank at Gunlod's house.
And then in the Havamal words of Odin, it says, after too much ale, the mind will flutter like a bird, pushing away the wits of a man. Even I was once a victim to these drunken flutters in the garths of Gemblow's bellow.
And from the words of the High One, we have the Heron of Forgetfulness, they call him, who over ale feast hovers and seals the minds of men. By this bird's feathers I was feted in the garden of... God, I'm not going to try to say that again a third time, I'm sorry.
And like, for me, what I kind of got out of this was how alcohol has a way of stealing people's minds, which we were talking about earlier. And, Shank had put it, talking about how, guys tend to start boasting and thinking that they know all this, and they keep repeating themselves and doing all this and actually making a fool out of themselves, while all the while, because of the effects that they had from taking in too much, their mindset is, I know what I'm talking about and I'm right, and everybody's paying attention and listening to me, when in all turn, you're making a fool of yourself.
Yeah.
This is probably, out of this section, probably my favorite one of the stanzas, because again, if we think about the fundamental of what these books are, they are the advice words of Odin. And I feel like this stanza is like him going, listen guys, like I've fucking been there, it sucks, and you're not going to have a good time, stop doing it. Like, it just kind of, like, it feels like he's just leveling that, I'm not just preaching this shit to you guys, I've been through it, which is another aspect of the connection the Norse pagans have with the deities that I really, really like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like over beer, the bird of forgetfulness, like that's just, the imagery and whatnot. But then I kind of took it literal, like with the story of how Odin like tricked them, and then how he like stole it, and he literally drank it all, to get it out of there, and he was a bird. Like, I kind of, like you just said, Dranger, like I think he got like wasted from drinking all of that, and was
he got
like,
shit-faced, and he probably
yeah,
had
like don't.
his version of a walk of shame that next morning. It sounds like
I
it,
bet.
right?
Yeah, but he kept talking about feathers, and that's just what I took out of it.
Yeah.
See, I immediately thought of Odin because he has his two ravens. And so throughout this whole entire thing, it's Odin's ravens are taking other men's wisdom from them.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Wisdom.
Because the
Maybe
more they
Odin's
drink, the
sending
more their
me.
mind is weakened, and then it's easier for him to take their wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right,
like
because
that.
it does talk about the birds stealing the wisdom of the drunken people, which in turn, I could see with Odin's, I could see with Odin's vast need to gain knowledge on a constant basis. Him sending out his ravens as people get drunk, being like, "That's mine, that's mine, that's mine."
Yeah. It reminds me of, you ever get too close to like a raven's nest during nesting season, and they will literally just start fucking sky bombing you, and they're just a constant irritant, and they won't hit you, but all day they're just like, fuck dude, back off. Like that's what that kind of reminds me of, is those birds. Like when you're that inebriated, you are that annoying fucking bird. Like, you know what I mean? You kind of become that, you know? And
I feel like that's my hangover.
I think there's like a little bit of accuracy to that, because I mean, in a hunting gathering kind of society, if you are stealing eggs from wild birds, that's a thing that like legitimately happens, and it would be a fucking pain in the ass when it did. So I could see that being attributed societally wise to that person that's really shit faced and comes and tells you for the 52th time that they have a secret they need to tell you. And it's like, fuck, bro. Like, seriously. Right? And I don't know. That's how I cut that one.
That's funny.
Or that guy that's always like, hey, guys, come here. I'm drunk.
Yeah.
But don't tell anyone. Shh. And they can't whisper.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're yelling it, and it's like everyone can
Nobody
hear you.
likes
They
being drunk.
can't.
That is just an invasion kind of space that shouldn't be invaded, because it's like you're annoyed, they stink, their breath is hot, and you're like, and you can't understand them, and you're like, you just, like, even if it's your best friend, you're like, holy fuck, bud, like, you're gonna get one. Like,
So then we hit stanza 14 in our final stanza for this episode, you guys. One thing I want to mention before we finish off with number 14 or get into number 14 is one thing to look at is 11 to 14 have all basically been saying, don't get drunk, don't get inebriated. And, you know, there's a lot in the Havamal that does go back to, you know, talking about not getting drunken and not making a fool out of yourself. And, you know, being that it is, you know, in the words of Odin and everything, you know, I feel like Dranger said, like, he's done it. And he's like, this is what you don't want to do because I've been there. And, like,
yeah.
I know how stupid you are and how stupid you're going to feel and how dumb you get from doing it. So learn from my mistakes.
That
Because
you totally
here's your
you
warning.
totally just popped something into my head then, because we've been talking about, and I think each one of us made that a point about how experience leads to wisdom. That, like Shank was talking about passing stories forward to the next generation, there is a decent amount of heathens that do believe the gods are their original ancestors and worship them that way. So you could see that kind of be weaved into this a little bit, where it would
Like
be
come full
taken
circle.
as the word of a trusted loved one. You know what I mean? Which is probably why the consequences for breaching it socially were so severe.
Right.
Yeah, and what's nice with this is they are giving you a reason. They're not just saying, here's the law, like, or here's, you
Yeah.
know, like, just don't do it. You just don't
Yep.
do it. But they are going into detail about the reasons, and that's what I like. I mean, a lot of Norse pagan, like, they're kind of loose with some stuff, but like, they have plenty of reason, and they give you explanations. You're not just like, oh, okay, so I'm not allowed to do this, and they won't tell me
Yeah.
why. But yeah. Yeah.
And I always really like to tie the word don't overdrink to these stanzas, because again, there are some people that see these and their mind gets stuck because Odin's saying don't do this, but so many rituals, even giving an offering to Odin, one of his wines and meats are his go-to offering, right? So it seems kind of hypocritical. So you have to look at it from the societal view and not just like it as a commandment. It was, hey, this is how, you know, you're going to succeed. People are going to want you around. They're not going to think you're a dickhead, you know, for falling over on your face every time everybody gets together or something like that. You know what I
You're
mean?
like, every
That's,
once in a while it's okay, but not every
every
time.
once in a while it's okay, because yeah, again,
Yeah.
and I always try to talk about how it has to fit into the natural world. You're not going to know where your limit is until you've gone past it once. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does happen. The wise man remembers that and sticks to 3 instead of 6 the next time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's the point.
And I really like
For some of us,
that.
it takes more than once.
We're still
Or
working
12
on that
times.
number, Redbeard.
But this stanza too also reminds everyone that Odin is the narrator in this book.
Yes.
I mean, it you lose that sight sometimes when you read it because you're reading it just like a book. You're not hearing his voice, or you're not putting his voice in your head when you read it. And then this here is like, hey, I'm the one that's giving you this.
And that's the great part about being able to slow down and share opinions with everybody, is that you don't just read over it as just the text. You try to look into more intent, and you try to it makes it deeper. I think, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we analyze it a lot more and
Yeah.
really read into it, and the thought that's put behind it for the reason it was put out there in the first place. You know,
Yeah.
it's not just something that was put together. It was something that was thought through before it was translated and put down and put into a study format and everything. There was a lot of thought that's gone into all of it. It's not something to just be out there. It's something to learn from. And with that, with Bray, like that's the thing with just talking about the fact that this is from Odin. Like right away in 14, it says, "Drunk was I then. I was overdrunk in the crafty Jutton's court, but best is an ale feast when man is able to call back his own wits at once."
Yeah. So that leads us into Thorpe's transition. Drunk I was overdrunk at that cunning, I don't know, Fitzgerald, again, tongue-tied, sorry guys, is the best drunkenness when everyone after it regains his reason.
Drunk I was dead drunk when with, I think it's Falar. I think the J's silent, but I don't know. When with Falar wise I was, 'tis the best of drinking, if back one brings his wisdom with him home. And that's Bellows.
I was drunk. I was too drunk. At Wise Farlow's house. The best kind of feast is the one you go home from with all your wits around about you.
Ooh.
And then I have drunk I was dead drunk in Falar Court, but the best feast of ale is when a man can instantly call back his wits.
Yeah. And then from the words of the High One, drunk I became very drunk at the home of Fajar the Wise. That ale feast is best, where after recovers each man who sat there his mind.
And so basically what I'm taking out of this, and this like I said, this all is kind of tying in together, and that's why we kind of put this section together to discuss, is just the best sought after experience in drinking is one where you can remember. So drink, but do it in moderation. Have fun, but don't cross the line. Don't drink so much that you forget yourself and the things you should be doing, your responsibilities, and don't make a fool of yourself.
Yeah. I put best of drinking as being able to drink but still keep your wits about you, and it also I put it also helps introverts be more active and social. I don't know why I put that, but I mean, and then I also kind of like as you guys are reading the other versions, I thought like to bring it back to like now, it kind of sounds like a sober up before you come home. Like sober up, like
It does, yeah.
don't drink and drive. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't mean that, but that's like the first thing that comes to my head. But mainly all of this I think is about you can drink, but when you're traveling, maybe, keep it at a minimum.
Right.
This one makes me think of the hospitality stanzas. Be able at the end of the event to be able to leave under your own power. You know what I mean? Do not be that bad guest that they now have to look at you because you're not able to take care of yourself. You know what I mean? Because again, now you're a problem for somebody else. That's kind of what it gets to me. Like, because I think when they talk about keep their wits about you at the end, I think where between low functioning and high functioning is that tab? You know what I mean? Like, is it like
Well,
you need to be stone cold good to go, or do you need to have a lucky drunk ass home? Like where where is that?
I kind of feel like what it was saying was go ahead and drink and have fun and have a good time. But like when it's talking about being able to call back your wits and your wisdom, is like know when you're hitting that limit and realize, that you're starting to hit that point where I need to back off or I need to stop because I'm about to, it's about knowing your limit and knowing that line not to cross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the fact that the first two lines is Odin admitting, I was drunk.
I was very
Plain and simple. I was
Right?
drunk. I wasn't just a little bit drunk. I was drunk.
Yeah.
Also, I had put that name because I wanted to see the I put a question mark next to it, and it means deceiver.
Which word?
The one that we're having trouble with, the FJALAR.
Yeah.
He was the
Salar.
name of a fuck. He was the name of a giant, I think.
But it
If
also, when I researched it,
Is that the
means
father
deceiver or
of
deception.
Gun?
Yeah. Because they referred to as Jotun once. Fuck. I really wish I knew what my other book was.
Well, and that could go to the fact that, when you're drinking, your wits are down, so it's easier for somebody to take advantage of you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, basically, like in a nutshell, to me, this group of stanzas is go out, have fun, keep your shit together. Like don't make messages.
Yeah, I definitely think, it's just reminding you that like even Odin saying, I've been there, I've done stupid shit, learn from your mistakes. Try not to keep doing the same thing over and over again. Realize what your limits are, so that you can keep your wits about you at least to a certain point. And like learn, like Red said at one point, read the room. Read when it's time to like drink too much and it's not. Like if I came on here and we were doing this and I've done what I've done other nights during this, it would not be appropriate at all.
I know. I kind of feel weird about it. Like it's all like, don't drink too much. But what if I want to?
Well, that's the thing. And if you're
There's a
doing
time
it,
and place for it.
you got to remember that
Yeah.
this is all designed around the social function aspect of that. You are with other people when they talk about this because they talk about the hall. They talk about there's a lot of plural words involved in these group of stances. If you're at home drunk on your ass and you're going out with friends to get drunk off your ass and that's the plan, fucking have at her. You know what I mean? It's not.
Right. It's just saying be the wisest of the fools.
Yeah.
Yes, I like
Yeah.
that.
Just don't go decide to visit your ex with everybody because there'll be consequences the next day. That kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Or drunk text them. That's where the
Yeah.
drunk calls come in.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's like judge the situation like that you're gonna drink in, and it's like like Drenger said, if the point is, you're there to get drunk that night and you're there to have fun and you don't care, and you may do some stuff that you may regret some of it the next day, but it's not like you regret the whole night because you were like made a fool out of yourself at a place that you didn't intend to.
Exactly.
because you don't know your limits.
As a grown person, if you're choosing to go get drunk with your friends, you're also making sure that you have plans for afterwards, plans to come and go. Oh, Giggles just got bounced too. Loki strikes again. Um, Whereas if you just are that person that randomly does it during other events, like if you're at a family barbecue and Uncle Tom is again falling on the ground, you're like, fucking hell. You know what I mean?
I'm like, here, you should see my face. The first thing that went through my head was, what the fuck?
Okay. We all ring around the rosy again too. Fuck, Redbeard's gonna have a lot of fun doing this live. It's gonna be great.
Dude, like I said, I'm just letting it roll.
I'm just
Yeah,
reading here being like, oh yeah. And then all of a sudden, boom, I'm like, what did I do?
that means the only one to not get yeeted yet by the guest is Shank. So at some point in the next probably 20 minutes, she's gonna go poof.
We'll see.
she looks at the phone and be like, try it.
Bring it.
That's a challenge right there.
I can
So that
handle
was
it.
I am very much a fan of having the extra people in the boxes for the discussion point of this. I'm excited to see what everybody who has been in here tonight kind of feels about it, to hear what you guys feel about it. I hope that you guys have lots of questions for our awesome guests because they're not always here. So if you want further them to elaborate on something or something like that, now is definitely the time to ask when we go into the Q&A period. And yeah, this was awesome.
Yeah, no, I really
And-
liked the format tonight.
Yeah, and it is 11:27.
Yes. I was waiting for
I kept
waiting
forgetting.
for like a reason behind the time check, but
Oh
no,
no,
I'm just
no
kidding.
reason.
No, guys, like it's been amazing discussing this. We're gonna get ready to hit the Q&A section here, guys. Did you have anything before we wrap up, Dranger?
If you guys haven't checked out the new merch, it is in the new merch shop. If you're not following the Discord, please be doing that. These shows are never too long, and there's a lot of time in between them. That Discord community is always rocking. There's always somebody in there asking questions or giving help or just sharing and talking and hanging out. So please join the Discord.
Yes, and follow us on YouTube, guys. Our YouTube channel, if you're watching it here, you know what it is. If not, it's Norris_talk on YouTube. When you check it out, hit that follow button, hit that like button, help that grow as well, you guys. We upload all these episodes to YouTube within a couple weeks after we do them on TikTok. So look from there if you kind of halfway through and want to hear the rest, or you want to see the previous episodes of the previous book. Those are all on YouTube already. But with that, we are going to get ready. We're going to close this section out and jump to the Q&A, you guys. But, you know, as always, guys, it's not a me thing. It's not a him thing. It's not a them thing. It's not a you thing. We couldn't do it without each and every one of you. Stay amazing, stay creating, and as always, be awesome, and we'll see you next time.